The air hung thick with the stale scent of cigarettes and cheap beer. My husband, Zephyr, lay sprawled on the sofa, muttering in his sleep. It wasn't my name he was whispering, but hers, Willow. 3 years, and he still hadn't forgotten her. I tried to push the thought aside. Drunk ramblings, nothing more. Then, his phone buzzed. A single text message from a contact saved as Supplier Zhou. It read, "Thank you for giving me and our baby a home." His ex-girlfriend's last name was Zhou. My world tilted on its axis. Our life together had been a whirlwind of ambition and progress. After I married Zephyr, we'd built a comfortable life. A new house, a luxury car that cost nearly $120,000, a healthy savings account, and a thriving business. Zephyr's sudden proposal 3 years ago had come with promises, a life of comfort, unwavering love, and he'd delivered on most of them. We were ready for the next step, a family. That night was supposed to be our night. My ovulation window. He'd promised to be home early. I'd prepared myself meticulously. A new, lacy lingerie set, a spritz of expensive perfume, the image of myself draped seductively on the sofa, waiting for him. But the hours ticked by. Finally, a text, stuck entertaining an important client. "We'll be late." A knot of unease tightened in my stomach. Maybe I was being overly sensitive. "Okay," I replied, "I'll go to bed." Sometime in the dead of night, I woke to the sound of the door. Zephyr was home, but he was a mess. He'd collapsed on the sofa, his brow furrowed, clearly uncomfortable. I went to him, the overwhelming stench of smoke hitting me first. "Did you smoke?" I asked, my voice tight. He didn't respond, his eyes still closed. He seemed to be asleep. Leaning closer, I caught the sharp tang of alcohol. Disappointment mixed with a pang of pity. We were trying to conceive. He'd promised to cut back on drinking and smoking. But seeing him like this, so obviously miserable, softened my anger. "Zephyr," I said, gently shaking his arm, "take a shower before you sleep." "I'll run the water for you." He mumbled, a sound of petulant refusal. "Don't want, shower." In our 3 years of marriage, I'd never seen him this drunk. I managed a weak smile. "You're filthy," I whispered, trying to coax him. "You stink." His face crumpled, a wave of genuine sadness washing over him. "Willow," he murmured, "what do I have to do to make you happy?" The name struck me like a physical blow. I froze, disbelief and a well of tears rising in my eyes. I thought Zephyr had forgotten Willow. In 3 years, neither he nor any of our friends had mentioned her. Willow was a forbidden word in our marriage, a specter from a past I believed was buried. In truth, I owed my marriage to Willow's actions. 3 years ago, Zephyr and Willow were set to marry. The night before their wedding, I was alone, heartbroken, drowning my sorrows in alcohol. But the next morning, Zephyr abandoned Willow at the altar. He showed up at my door, a bouquet of vibrant roses in hand, a line of bewildered groomsmen behind him. He got down on one knee and proposed. I was stunned. He'd been utterly sincere, his eyes filled with a desperate kind of hope. "I don't have much money now," he'd said, "but I'm working hard. I promise. I'll give you a good life. If you'll have me, I swear I'll devote myself to you completely. If I ever break that vow, may I never know happiness again." I'd loved Zephyr since college, but my shyness had held me back. By the time I'd mustered the courage to confess, he was already with Willow. I'd maintained a respectful distance, never crossing the line. But then, this unexpected proposal. The sheer joy of that moment eclipsed everything else. I was willing to risk everything for him. However, not long after our wedding, I stumbled upon a viral video on social media. The protagonists? Zephyr and Willow. It was their wedding day. Zephyr, beaming, had arrived at Willow's family home to collect his bride. But her family demanded an additional $30,000 dowry, a last-minute demand. In the video, Zephyr pleaded with Willow, his voice strained. "Willow, I don't have that kind of money right now. But I promise, after the wedding, I'll find a way to get it to your parents. Please, just come with me." Willow's face was a mask of cold fury. "What do you mean, get it to them later? Is that how dowries work? Besides, my parents just want to make sure I'll be taken care of." Zephyr's tone remained placating, almost desperate. "Willow, please, be reasonable. Think of my parents, too. I simply don't have that much cash right now." Suddenly, Willow exploded. "What did you say when you proposed? You promised me a good life. Now you can't even come up with $30,000? How can I be sure you'll provide for me? I'm telling you now, either you get the money or this wedding is off. Zephyr's face had turned ashen. He was silent for a long moment, then asked, his voice barely a whisper, "You're calling off the wedding because of this?" Willow's voice rose, shrill and accusatory. "Yes! I'm not marrying you. Let someone else do it." Zephyr's anger finally broke through. "Willow," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "have I spoiled you too much? This is our wedding day. Can't you just put aside your whims and marry me?" Willow erupted again. "What do you mean, my whims? Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. You and that friend of yours, Serafina. You pretend to be just friends, but I see it. She's in love with you. Go marry her." "I'm not marrying you today." That was the final straw. Zephyr's face hardened. He turned to his groomsmen. "Let's go." The video ended there. The rest, I knew. Zephyr, after leaving Willow's house, had come straight to me and proposed. Watching that video, I felt a surge of nausea and a deep, aching sadness. Zephyr's proposal on that day had been an act of defiance, a reaction to Willow's rejection. But after our wedding, Zephyr had surprised me. He'd cut off all contact with Willow. He'd been devoted, attentive. I'd gradually pushed aside my doubts about his initial motivations. Later, I heard that Willow had married a classmate who'd had a long-standing crush on her. Her name faded from our lives, or so I thought. These past 3 years, aside from a certain emotional reserve, Zephyr had been a model husband. Our life was comfortable, peaceful, even happy. I'd almost forgotten that he hadn't married me because I was the love of his life, but because I was the available option when he couldn't meet Willow's demands. Now, his drunken words ripped away the veil of contentment. He'd never forgotten her. My heart hammered against my ribs. I couldn't believe he'd utter her name. His phone buzzed again. My stomach lurched. While he was still asleep, I slipped his phone from his pocket. Another text from Supplier Zhou. "Thank you for giving me and our baby a home." I was almost certain. Supplier Zhou was Willow. The text alone wasn't enough to confirm the extent of their relationship, but my intuition, honed by years of observing Zephyr, told me his heart had already strayed. My best friend, Lyric, was a college classmate of Willow's ex-husband. Through Lyric, I learned that Willow had divorced a month ago. She'd given birth to a son earlier that year, and she'd taken the 3-month-old baby with her. Lyric couldn't find Willow's new address, and I couldn't find any large, unexplained expenses in Zephyr's recent transactions. Then, a memory surfaced. We'd moved into our new house a year ago. About a month before that, Zephyr had asked if we could temporarily lend our old apartment to a major client of his company. It had seemed odd at the time. I'd asked him why a wealthy client would want our small, 2-bedroom apartment. Zephyr had been secretive, explaining that the client had a mistress, a young college student. This client was crucial to their business. Lending the apartment would solidify their relationship and ensure future lucrative projects. I'd been reluctant, especially about lending it to people in an illicit relationship. But Zephyr had assured me it was only for a year, until the student graduated, as the apartment was close to her university. He'd also stressed the importance of not disturbing them, warning that upsetting the client could jeopardize the company. Now, piecing everything together, I realized the old apartment wasn't for a client. It was Zephyr's love nest. Even though I am Zephyr's wife, in our 3 years of marriage, my approach to our relationship had always been cautious. Even when he stated that he would love no one but me. Sometimes people's feelings are beyond their own control. He had never proactively told me that he loved me. Occasionally, when I was testing him, he would squeeze the words out for me, even though I'd be satisfied. I thought living happily ever after was the best I could ask for with Zephyr, but I did not expect this woman who used to be my worst nightmare to show up out of nowhere and ruin our seemingly happy marriage. Lyric worked in media and had a wide network of contacts. I asked her to find a reliable, discreet private investigator who specialized in surveillance. I gave her the address of our old apartment. Soon after, Lyric sent me several photos of Willow. With the photos came a phone call. "My friend hasn't caught Zephyr visiting Willow yet," Lyric said, "but Willow and her son are definitely living in your old apartment." A chilling suspicion crept into my mind. "Lyric," I said, "you told me Willow left her husband with nothing, and he didn't even want the child, right?" Lyric hesitated, then gasped. "No way. You don't think that scumbag Zephyr hooked up with that bitch a year ago, do you?" My heart sank. I suspect that child is Zephyr's. Looking back, the clues were all there. A year ago, Zephyr's business trips had become frequent, almost constant. Once, he'd returned smelling strongly of perfume. I'd been suspicious, but before I could question him, he'd complained about a woman on the plane who'd doused herself in a nauseating fragrance. Another time, I'd found an opened box of condoms in his suitcase. He'd explained that he'd seen a new type at the airport shop and wanted to try them with me. As for why it was opened, he'd blushed and confessed that he'd been alone in the hotel, missing me, and, well, he'd used a few. His embarrassment had been convincing, and I'd let it go. Zephyr was a neat freak, a stickler for cleanliness. His explanations had seemed plausible at the time. Now, I saw how flimsy they were. I'd believed him because I'd wanted to believe him. That evening, Zephyr came home from work, distracted and preoccupied. I knew he was thinking about Willow. During dinner, I casually mentioned our old apartment. He snapped to attention. "Honey," I said, "is your client happy with the old place?" He blinked, caught off guard. "Yeah, it's fine. Why do you ask?" I just remembered, I continued, the previous tenant called me several times about a leak in the bathroom ceiling. I sent someone to fix it a few times, but I'm not sure if it's still a problem. His eyes flickered nervously. The client hasn't mentioned anything. It's probably fine. Good, I said, nodding. He avoided my gaze, shoveling food into his mouth. His guilt was palpable. He added, "By the way, you haven't been bothering them at the apartment, have you?" My hand, holding my chopsticks, trembled slightly. I forced a smile. "Why do you ask?" He looked away, trying to appear calm. "You know that girl is my client's mistress. She's very shy, so please don't disturb her." I shrugged, sighing dramatically. "It's my apartment. You're telling me I can't even go to my own property?" He stiffened, his voice taking on a lecturing tone. "Don't be like that. They said they'd only stay for a year. And besides, our company's success depends on that client's goodwill." I'd never realized how good Zephyr was at lying. He was so convincing, so self-righteous, that I almost felt like I was the one in the wrong. Just then, his phone rang. I glimpsed the screen. Another call from Supplier Zhou. His expression faltered for a split second before he stood up and went to the balcony to answer. I chewed mechanically on a piece of potato, swallowing it without tasting anything. A bitter emptiness filled me. Zephyr rushed back in, grabbing his jacket. "There's a problem with a new shipment of materials at the warehouse," he said, his voice urgent. "I need to go check it out." "Can't the sales team handle it?" I asked. He hesitated, then said, "These are expensive materials. I need to see it myself to be sure." He left in a flurry, as if a major crisis had erupted. The door slammed shut. At the same moment, tears I could no longer hold back streamed down my face. I grabbed my phone and called Lyric. My voice was shaky. "Lyric, Willow called Zephyr away." Lyric immediately contacted her investigator friend, asking him to stake out the old apartment. About an hour later, Lyric sent me a video. In the video, Zephyr was carrying a child, his expression grim, hurrying out of the building. Willow ran after him, her face etched with worry. The three of them together looked like a family. Lyric sent a second video. This one showed Zephyr and Willow at a hospital, the child clearly ill. They both looked distressed, but I noticed the look in Zephyr's eyes when he glanced at Willow. It was a look of burning affection. I said to Lyric, "You know, I was there for Zephyr during his toughest times. When Willow's family looked down on him, when his business struggled. I supported him, encouraged him, believed in him. They say adversity strengthens a relationship. But this is just a cruel joke." A long holiday, National Day, was approaching. Months ago, Zephyr and I had planned a trip to Beijing. We'd booked flights, a hotel, everything. I knew the trip was doomed. I was just waiting for Zephyr to tell me. As expected, a few days before the holiday, Zephyr approached me, his face a mask of apology. "Honey, I'm so sorry. I can't go to Beijing with you. I have to go out of town for a very important business deal." I smiled. A business deal during the National Day holiday? Are clients even working? He was taken aback, clearly not expecting that question. But he recovered quickly. "You think everyone gets holidays? Some people are working hard to make a living." I feigned disappointment. "What about our travel plans, the flights, the hotel? Should we cancel?" He laughed. "Cancel? No way. You can invite Lyric to go with you. I'll change the names on the tickets and hotel reservation." It's a great opportunity. I'm sure Lyric would love to go. I was certain Zephyr wanted me out of town so he could spend time with Willow. On the day of the trip, Zephyr drove me to the airport where I met Lyric. Before boarding, he whispered in my ear, "Have fun in Beijing with Lyric. Don't worry about money. Buy whatever you want." To anyone else, Zephyr would have seemed like the perfect husband. But seeing his hypocritical face, I felt a surge of disgust. Zephyr had no idea I wasn't going to Beijing with Lyric. As soon as he left the airport, I walked out too. Lyric asked, "Are you sure you want to do this? If you see him with Willow, can you really let him go?" I managed a weak, bitter smile. "If I see it with my own eyes," I said, "then I can finally let go." Soon, Lyric's investigator friend called. He hadn't seen Zephyr, but Willow had taken a taxi with the child. The destination? My and Zephyr's house. I couldn't believe Zephyr's audacity. He'd brought Willow to our home the moment I was gone. He was so confident I wouldn't find out. I had a key to the house. Before I even opened the door, I could hear the child crying inside. The crying muffled the sound of the door opening. As I stepped inside, I saw a pair of women's shoes, not mine, on the shoe rack by the entrance. My slippers were missing. I walked further into the living room. The child's cries were intermittent. And then I saw them. Zephyr and Willow were on the sofa, locked in a passionate, desperate embrace. They hadn't noticed me at first. The child's crying finally prompted Zephyr to pull away slightly. "Why is he crying so much?" he asked Willow. "Is he still having stomach trouble?" Just then, Willow saw me and Lyric standing there. She screamed. Zephyr turned, his eyes widening in shock. And I saw it, his first, instinctive reaction. He shielded Willow with his body. That single, involuntary movement told me everything. 3 years of shared struggles, of building a life together, meant nothing compared to Willow. Zephyr's initial panic quickly subsided. He stood up, his face still smeared with Willow's lipstick. He asked, calmly, "When did you find out?" Lyric, standing behind me, was furious, ready to attack them both. But I held her back. I was surprised by my own composure. Even with tears welling up, even with my heart breaking, I was as calm as Zephyr. I didn't answer his question. Instead, I said, "Zephyr, the day you proposed, you promised me you'd love only me." His expression shifted slightly. He paused, then said, "Believe it or not, I never intended to divorce you." Willow, hiding behind him, spoke up, her voice sharp with indignation. "Zephyr, what are you saying? I gave you a child, and you're saying you don't want to divorce her." Zephyr's face paled. He thought for a long moment, weighing his options, before finally making a decision. He looked at me, his voice devoid of shame. "The child is mine. If you're willing, we can raise the child together. As for Willow, I'll end things with her." If I'd still harbored even a flicker of love for Zephyr, his outrageous proposal extinguished it completely. I realized the man I'd loved for so long was fundamentally selfish, cold, despicable, and utterly shameless. I actually laughed, the sound bitter and hollow. "Am I incapable of having children? Why should I raise someone else's child?" He said, coldly, "He's not someone else's child. He's mine." I looked at Zephyr. 3 years ago, when you proposed, were you so sure I'd say yes? Are you still so sure that I can't live without you? He met my gaze, his expression unwavering, his self-confidence unshaken. I couldn't help but smile, a sad, mocking smile. "Zephyr," I said, "on our wedding day, I told you I had a zero-tolerance policy for infidelity. I wasn't joking. I can accept you not loving me, but I will never accept your betrayal." He said, "I've already made a concession. I just want to raise my child. If you want children, we can still have our own." We often chat online about how scummy men could get, and they do get quite creative with it. I must admit I have never seen something so shameless and brazenly justified until I met Zephyr. At that moment, my heart was truly dead to him. I never thought I'd be able to let go of Zephyr, and so completely. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Lyric's friend, a screenshot of a DNA paternity test result. I'd almost forgotten. Lyric's friend had managed to obtain a few strands of the child's hair with follicles. I'd also plucked some of Zephyr's hair while he was asleep. The samples had been sent for testing. Reading the result, I couldn't help but smile. I looked up, my gaze sweeping over Willow's face, contorted with hatred, then to the crying child. I chuckled softly. "Zephyr," I said, "are you so sure that child is yours?" Zephyr stared doubtfully at the child. Willow, like a cornered animal, lashed out at me. Seraphina, she spat, how can you be so cruel? He's just a baby. He's innocent. How dare you say such a thing? Her protective stance was almost touching. Zephyr regained his composure. He glared at me. I would know if the child was mine. Seraphina, I'm the one who wronged you. Don't take it out on the child. They stood united, defending the child against me. I wasn't angry, just amused. How many men had Willow slept with during her marriage? She'd latched onto Zephyr, knowing his feelings for her, and pinned the child on him. When I'd loved Zephyr, I'd seen only his good qualities. Now, looking at him, I asked myself, what kind of man have I loved all these years? I smiled at Zephyr. Let's get a divorce. I'll give you what you want. After all, a child needs a complete family, doesn't he? When I brought up the divorce, I deliberately glanced at Willow out of the corner of my eye. Her eyes held a flicker of glee and anticipation. Under Willow's relentless prodding, Zephyr eventually agreed to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau with me. As we signed the divorce papers, Zephyr wore a sullen expression. I signed my name quickly, but he hesitated, pen hovering above the paper, as if he had something to say but couldn't bring himself to utter it. I asked him, a hint of sarcasm in my voice, Zephyr, are you unhappy with the division of assets? He pressed his lips together tightly, his cold gaze sweeping over the document before him. Finally, he signed his name with a swift, decisive stroke. Lyric was waiting for me outside the Civil Affairs Bureau. She linked her arm through mine, glanced back at the dejected figure of Zephyr, and muttered, that scumbag. You should have left him with nothing. I smiled. That would have dragged on forever in court. I just wanted a clean break, some peace and quiet. Besides, Zephyr was now saddled with the burden of raising another man's child, believing it was his own. He was already in a miserable situation. I didn't need his money. I'd consider it child support for the other man's offspring. That night, Lyric took me to a bar. After a few drinks, I confessed, Lyric, I honestly don't love him anymore. But when I think about how many years I spent secretly in love with him, and then the years we were married, I wasted the best years of my life on him. It's just unfair. Lyric grabbed my hand, gesturing around the crowded bar with her other hand. There are plenty of single people out there, she said. Smiling, one of them is meant for you. Zephyr cheated on you while you were married. Now that you're divorced, what do you have to fear? I shook my head, smiling wryly. Disease. Just then, a man, younger than me but strikingly handsome, approached. He greeted me with a smile. What a coincidence. I didn't expect to see Mrs. Chen here. I was taken aback. Do I know you? He handed me a business card. I suppose you could say I'm a major client of your company, though you wouldn't know me. I just happened to see you once. When I was at your company for a meeting, you were bringing Zephyr some soup. I remember thinking, when I get married, I want a wife as devoted as that. Although I wasn't involved in the company's day-to-day operations, I knew Zephyr had partnerships with several companies. The information on the man's business card checked out. I looked at him, surprised, and couldn't help but think of the lies Zephyr had spun. I'd been so gullible, assuming all major clients were middle-aged men. But here he was, the real major client, a young, handsome, and undeniably attractive man. Lyric kept giving me knowing glances, a mischievous grin on her face. Then, she made an excuse and left. I looked at the young man, a polite smile on my face. I'm sorry, I said, but I'm not Mrs. Chen anymore. Zephyr and I are divorced. He didn't seem surprised. In fact, he smiled. It was only a matter of time. Zephyr's infidelity had become so blatant, even his clients knew. How embarrassing. The young man, Orion, was a successful entrepreneur who'd returned from studying abroad. He owned a company with significant growth potential. He told me he'd personally seen a woman with a child waiting for Zephyr outside the company building. Zephyr had claimed she was just a friend. As a man, Orion had seen through the charade. But as an outsider, he hadn't felt it was his place to interfere in a client's personal affairs. That night, Orion bought me a few drinks. We hit it off immediately. As the alcohol flowed, he said, "Be my girlfriend." I was stunned. Then I laughed. Don't be ridiculous. I'm a newly divorced woman. Why would you want me? Orion wrapped his arm around my waist, his gaze both playful and intensely serious. Who cares about that? I never imagined that, after leaving Zephyr, I would become so liberated. That night, without hesitation, I slept with Orion. When I woke up, hungover, Orion had already prepared breakfast for me. I stared at him, feeling a sense of unreality. "Why didn't you leave?" I asked. He said, "You think I'm only interested in your body? You promised to be my girlfriend. You can't go back on your word." I was speechless. And just like that, we were together. Even though I didn't love him, I found myself strangely enjoying the feeling of being in a relationship. My first love, my secret crush, my marriage. For so many years, Zephyr had been the only man in my world. Zephyr and I had skipped the dating phase and gone straight to marriage. Now, I was finally experiencing the joy and excitement of a real relationship. I always assumed Orion and I were just having fun, a casual fling. We both seemed to understand this unspoken agreement, waiting for the day one of us would tire of it and call it quits. When did I start taking my relationship with Orion seriously? It was probably about 2 months after we started dating, when Willow unexpectedly showed up at my door. After my divorce from Zephyr, I'd bought a small apartment for myself. Orion had moved in with me. Willow arrived early one morning. I was still asleep, and Orion had gone for his morning run. When the doorbell rang, I assumed it was Orion, forgetting his keys. I grumbled a bit before opening the door. But it wasn't Orion. Willow, accompanied by her parents and a group of relatives, stormed into my apartment. They were shouting and cursing, trashing my place. Willow grabbed my hair, accusing me of seducing Zephyr even after the divorce, demanding that I return all the assets I'd received in the settlement. Orion returned to find me being assaulted. Without a word, he grabbed a nearby trash can and smashed it over Willow's head. "You crazy bitch. How dare you lay a hand on my woman?" Orion roared. Willow's head was bleeding profusely. Everyone in the room froze. Orion pulled me into his arms, his face dark with fury. He saw the bruises on my body, and his eyes filled with a mixture of pain and rage. "I wouldn't even dare to hurt my own woman. Where do you get off?" Orion was livid, practically spitting fire. In the 2 months we'd been together, I'd only seen his sunny, optimistic side. I'd never witnessed this fierce, protective side of him. Zephyr arrived shortly after. Even though Willow was already bleeding from Orion's blow, Zephyr slapped her across the face. "You lying whore. You have some nerve, deceiving me. That child isn't even mine." It turned out that after marrying Willow, Zephyr had taken the child in. But the more he looked at the child, the less it resembled him. He'd secretly done a DNA test. The results were in. The truth was out. Zephyr was furious. After hitting Willow, he screamed, "And you have the audacity to come here and harass Seraphina? If your family hadn't been so greedy and materialistic, would I have run to Seraphina and proposed on our wedding day? I owe Seraphina so much, I don't even have the face to see her. And you dare to bring all these people here to torment her?" I heard everything Zephyr said. Orion was there, too, but Zephyr was so consumed by his rage that he didn't even notice him. When he finally calmed down and saw Orion, he froze. His stunned expression was almost comical. He stammered, "Mr. Chiu, what are you doing here? What's your relationship?" I told Orion everything about Zephyr's lies and manipulations. Orion looked at Zephyr with a cold smile. "As you can see, we're together. But Seraphina isn't some college student I'm keeping. We're in a real relationship." Zephyr's face changed color. Others might not have understood the implication of Orion's words, but Zephyr understood perfectly. If I had to describe his expression at that moment, it was like he'd just swallowed a mouthful of excrement. After Zephyr dragged Willow and her family away, Orion took me to his apartment. That was when I truly felt what it was like to be protected, cherished, and loved by someone. That night, Orion held me close, his voice tinged with a hint of resentment. "We've been together for so long, but I don't feel your love. You're not good to me at all." I was taken aback. It was then that I realized Orion had always known how I felt about our relationship, or rather, how I perceived our relationship. That night, I buried my face in his chest, listening to his strong heartbeat. "That will change," I said. He wasn't satisfied. He pouted and said, "How will you prove it?" I leaned up, looked at his lips, which were pouting so much they could probably hold a bottle of oil, and kissed him. After our passionate encounter, I pretended to be asleep, fearing he'd want more. If I hadn't pretended to be asleep, I would have missed his confession. He thought I was asleep. He sighed, then said, 3 years ago, when I first came back to the country to start my business, I saw you at Zephyr's company. I fell in love with you at first sight. When I found out you were Zephyr's wife and that you were his second choice, I was so angry. He tucked the blanket around me, then added, still sounding slightly bitter, you heartless woman. Do you think I gave all those projects to Zephyr for no reason? It was because I was always thinking of you, wanting you to have a good life. Even though Orion only said a few words, I could sense the truth behind them. I didn't know how much Orion had influenced my divorce from Zephyr, but knowing that his actions were motivated by his love for me made me surrender completely. When Zephyr and I divorced, he was the guilty party, but I hadn't demanded that he be left with nothing. What I hadn't done, Orion started doing. First, he terminated all business dealings with Zephyr. Zephyr had lost a major client, and his company would suffer significant losses. Then, Orion started targeting some of Zephyr's company's shady practices. In the past, Orion had turned a blind eye to any substandard materials or corner-cutting by Zephyr's company. But now, Orion was holding him accountable. Zephyr's company and Zephyr himself as the legal representative were being sued. I learned all of this later from Lyric, who'd heard it from her friends. Orion had probably kept it from me, fearing I'd soften. But when Lyric told me, I felt no sympathy for Zephyr. I told Lyric he deserves it. It's his karma. Even if I forgave him, someone else would eventually hold him accountable. Lyric teased me, wow, you've moved on fast. Protecting your young lover already. I smiled and didn't deny it. Orion had become obsessed with marriage. He proposed to me constantly. Although I'd fallen in love with him, I hadn't even considered marriage. Seeing my lack of enthusiasm, Orion didn't give up. He asked me, if I propose 99 times, will you say yes? I couldn't help but laugh. Where did you get that crazy idea? He said, I looked it up online. I threw a pillow at him. You're so childish. Despite that, Orion persisted, seizing every seemingly opportune moment to propose, though less frequently than before, fearing he'd annoy me. Unexpectedly, Zephyr came to see me. He looked haggard, thinner, his eyes filled with regret. He said, I divorced Willow. I'm completely over her. I looked at him calmly, saying nothing. I didn't know what to say. Hearing him say he'd divorced Willow felt like our own divorce was ancient history, something I'd almost forgotten. We were silent for a long time. Then Zephyr said, Seraphina, please give me one last chance. I know I was wrong. You know I never wanted to divorce you. If I hadn't thought the child. He stopped himself, realizing his mistake. I looked at him, a smile playing on my lips. I found his words amusing. Seeing that I wasn't angry, he continued, Orion is 4 years younger than you. He's not settled down yet. Don't get too attached. His words sparked a sudden surge of anger within me. I couldn't stand him saying anything negative about Orion. I realized then how deeply I cared for Orion, that I couldn't tolerate anyone speaking ill of him. I looked at Zephyr, my voice serious and warning. You don't seem to be doing too well. I suggest you focus on your company. Otherwise, you might really go bankrupt. Zephyr, deflated by my words, slunk away. Seeing him again made me realize how deep my feelings for Orion had become. After Zephyr left, I called Orion. What are you doing? I asked. He said, I'm in a meeting. Normally, I wouldn't answer calls during a meeting, but I'll always answer your calls, no matter what. I chuckled. Smooth talker. Then, I changed the subject. How many times have you proposed to me? He said, 76 times. I'm getting more determined with each rejection. I'm telling you, when I reach 99 proposals, you'll be so moved, you'll have to say yes. I burst out laughing. I'll give you a pass on the rest, I said. Orion was silent for a moment. Then, his voice trembling, he asked, What do you mean? Are you breaking up with me? I didn't answer, just laughed. He asked again, his voice filled with hope and anxiety, Are you saying yes? I smiled. Yes, I'm saying yes. Let's get married. Soon after, Orion and I both posted on social media. I wrote, Thank you for your unwavering love and support these past 3 years. You've shown me what true happiness is. I'm so lucky to have met you and fallen in love with you. For the rest of my life as your wife, I will love only you, my dear Orion. Orion's post read, I was an outsider, a stranger. From the moment I first saw you, I stood by, silently watching you, loving you, wishing you happiness. Now to have you, I've never felt so blessed. Dear Seraphina, thank you for agreeing to marry me. The accompanying photo was of Orion and me, our fingers intertwined, wedding rings on our ring fingers. News of my divorce from Zephyr had already spread like wildfire, thanks to Lyric's big mouth. Lyric's reasoning was that Zephyr and Willow were shameless, and she wanted to expose them to get revenge for me. I didn't care either way, so I let Lyric spread the word. Now, when I announced my upcoming marriage, I was flooded with well wishes from friends and family. That night, I woke up to the sound of frantic knocking on the door. I was about to get up, but Orion held me back. It's the middle of the night. You stay in bed. I'll see what's going on. A few moments later, I heard raised voices. It was Zephyr's voice. He was yelling at Orion, "You black-hearted weasel. I wondered why you were so eager to give me all those projects these past 3 years, even though we weren't that close. It turns out you were after my wife." Orion laughed coldly. "Who's your wife?" "Seraphina is my wife now." I came out of the bedroom to see the two men fighting. Zephyr was clearly drunk and no match for Orion. Orion pinned him to the floor, punching him repeatedly, shouting, "I gave you those projects so Seraphina could have a good life with you. I never intended to break you up. It's your own fault you messed around with another woman. When I saw the woman I love getting hurt, of course I'd take her back." I finally intervened, pulling Orion off Zephyr. But Orion continued to berate him, that scumbag. 3 years ago, I knew he married Seraphina because she was his second choice. I wanted to punch him then. I calmed Orion down, then turned to Zephyr, my voice calm. "Leave. Don't make me lose all respect for you." Zephyr looked at me, his face filled with defeat and regret. Finally, he left. The next morning, I received a phone call from Zephyr's mother. Although Zephyr and I hadn't lived with his parents after our marriage, they'd always felt guilty about his sudden proposal and had been kind to me. As soon as I answered the phone, his mother started crying. "Seraphina, it's our Zephyr's fault. He wronged you. But he knows he was wrong. Please forgive him. Please come back." I frowned, sensing something more in her words. "Auntie," I said, "Zephyr and I are truly over. I'm happy now. And I'm engaged to my boyfriend. We're getting married soon." His mother's sobs intensified. "Then I beg you, please go see Zephyr. That ungrateful boy, he came home last night, I don't know what got into him. He swallowed a whole bottle of my sleeping pills. If his father and I hadn't found him in time, he would have died." That morning, Orion drove me to the hospital. I told him, "You don't need to come in. You might upset him. If he gets agitated and tries to kill himself again, it'll be our fault." Orion shrugged, a cynical smile on his face. A real man should be able to handle things. When he cheated, he should have known this day might come. I pinched Orion's cheek, smiling. Okay, I know you're generous. You've waited for me for 3 years. You can wait one more day, right?" Orion was reluctant, but he understood. He grabbed my hand, looking at me earnestly. "You can go in, but don't be swayed by his pathetic appearance. And his parents are there, too. Don't let your sympathy for them make you forget about me." I smiled and nodded. "Wait for me." I turned and knocked on Zephyr's hospital room door. Zephyr was awake, but his eyes were vacant, his expression lifeless. His parents were sitting by his bedside. I hadn't seen them in a while, and they seemed to have aged considerably. They were very welcoming when they saw me. His mother said, "Seraphina, you're finally here." I smiled. "Uncle, Auntie, I'd like to speak to Zephyr alone." They nodded and left the room. I walked over to Zephyr, my gaze calm as I looked at his pale face. His eyes gradually regained a flicker of life. He looked at me, and tears suddenly welled up. He looked like a naive, lovesick boy, hesitant and awkward. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "I'll peel an orange for you." He reached for an orange on the bedside table, starting to peel it. I remembered that oranges were his favorite fruit. When we were together, I used to peel oranges for him, meticulously removing all the white pith before giving it to him. Watching his clumsy attempts to peel the orange, I said, "Thank you, but I don't like oranges." He quickly said, "Then what do you like? I'll go buy it for you." I smiled. "That won't work. I love durian, but I remember you hate the smell." He immediately denied it. "I don't hate it. Anything you like, I don't hate. Seraphina, I know I was wrong. I've changed. I've really changed. Please don't marry him. Please come back." He grabbed my wrist, his grip surprisingly strong, his emotions overwhelming him. He looked insane, nothing like the confident, ambitious man I'd known. I pulled my hand away, stepping back. Looking at him calmly, I asked, Zephyr, if Willow's child had really been yours, would you be like this now? He froze, his eyes flinching as they met my mocking gaze. He stammered, Seraphina, I love you. The person I love is you. I don't know when I fell in love with you, but I really can't live without you. I couldn't help but smile, a scornful smile. Zephyr, the only person you've ever loved is yourself. He was stunned, about to deny it, but I continued. I came here today because your mother called me this morning, crying, begging me to come see you, to save you. No matter how much their son screws up, they can forgive him and love him unconditionally. But Zephyr, I can't. I don't love you anymore. Tears streamed down his face. I looked at him, serious and resolute. This is the last time I'll come to see you. If you ever do something this foolish again, even if your mother or all your relatives beg me, I will never come to see you again. He was sobbing uncontrollably, but he didn't say another word. Before I turned to leave, my emotions were completely calm. Zephyr, to me, was now no different than a stranger. I'm leaving, I said. Take care of yourself. The person behind me, along with the past, was gone. As I opened the door, the first thing I saw was Orion's displeased expression. I smiled, walking over to him and linking my arm through his. Tell me honestly, I said, are you an angel sent down to save me? He said, I'm not an angel. I'm a demon. If anyone dares to steal my woman, I'll curse them, cast them into the abyss, to suffer eternal torment, with no chance of redemption. I laughed. Liar. I could see the light shining on you just now when I came out.